If the universe speaks to us in the silent language of symbols and numbers, why does man remain deaf to the symphony of his own existence? How can we decipher the blueprint of the absolute and awaken from the illusion of mortality?
We sit here, you and I, in the quiet of this hidden sanctuary because, well, that very question is the singular agonizing cry of the human soul in exile. The purpose of our contemplation is not to, amass intellectual trivialities.
Right, we aren't here for mere academic exercise.
Exactly. It is to peel back, layer by agonizing layer, the heavy, blinding illusion of the physical world. It is to read what the ancient initiates called the Book of Nature and the Book of Man. You, sitting silently before us, are undertaking the great work.
The mapping of the path of return.
Yes, the return to omnity. The absolute, the first cause, the limitless void that is simultaneously the totality of all that is. I mean, the universe is not a chaotic accident of dust and gas. It is a mathematically precise construct written in an alphabet of universal laws.
But before we trace this path to the absolute, I have to stop and ask about that deafness. I look at my own life and I look at the world right now. I wake up, I stare at a glowing screen, I rush to a job to secure pieces of paper to pay for the shelter I barely have time to enjoy.
It is the trap of the biological machine.
It is. I exhaust my body until I fall asleep. I mean, it isn't just that we are deaf to a symphony. It feels like we're deliberately trapped in a factory of noise. Is this what you mean by the illusion of mortality?
It is.
Because the concrete beneath my feet, the exhaustion in my bones, it feels terrifyingly real.
Well, it feels real because your senses are calibrated to register only the densest, most crystallized layer of existence. The concrete and the exhaustion are real within their specific domain, but they are not the ultimate reality.
So it's a matter of perspective, or rather a limitation of perspective.
Precisely. You feel trapped because you are trying to read a multidimensional text using only a one-dimensional lens. To decipher this blueprint, we must unlearn the language of that factory of noise. We must understand the true alphabet in which reality is written. I speak, of course, of numbers.
Numbers. When I hear that, I immediately think of accounting. I think of price tags, bank statements, the digits on a digital clock ticking away my mortal decay.
The burden of quantity.
Right. You're telling me this is the alphabet of reality.
Yeah.
Because right now, numbers just feel like arbitrary scribbles we invented to keep track of our inventory.
That is the tragic secular reduction of the modern age. To the profane mind, numbers are mere counting tools. But in the sacred esoteric tradition, numbers are not descriptive labels. They do not describe the universe, they actively structure it.
So they are the framework itself.
They are living, vibrating representations of immutable universal laws. Think of them not as the ink on a page, but as the very DNA code of reality. They are the geometric and vibrational scaffolding upon which the illusion of matter is hung. Let us begin at the alpha, the source of all that is, was, and ever shall be. One, the monad. In esoteric philosophy, one is the abstract symbol for omnity. It represents absolute, indivisible unity.
I mean, I can conceptualize one as a starting point, one apple, one planet. But you're talking about one as a structural law.
I am, and here is the profound paradox that you must internalize. One cannot actually be exactly represented in this physical world. Try to draw it.
A single dot.
Yes, but if you take a quill and draw the tiniest possible dot on a piece of parchment, that dot still possesses width, depth, and material substance. Therefore, it is no longer truly one. It has dimensions. It has left, right, top, and bottom.
So true unity is impossible to manifest physically.
True unity, the absolute omnity, is a purely mental, spiritual concept. It is both immanent dwelling within all manifestation and transcendent existing eternally above and beyond it. You cannot physically point to one.
Because pointing requires a separation between the pointer and the object.
Exactly. Without separate consciousness, there can be no differences, no choice, no exertion of will.
So if the absolute, this perfect unity of one, cannot even exist in the physical world, because everything physical has parts, how did we get here? How does a perfect indivisible unity create a universe of billions of fragmented, suffering people?
You seek the mechanism of the fall.
Yes, there has to be a break in the system.
It is not a break, it is a necessary descent. And that brings us to the law of duality. The number 2, the duad. This is the first beautiful, tragic separation from perfect unity. 2 represents division. It is the birthplace of polarity.
Light and dark, hot and cold, male and female.
Exactly so. It is passivity versus activity. Geometrically, it is the line drawn between 2 points a one-dimensional reality. It signifies opposition.
So conflict is built into the very second step of creation.
Without the duad, there is no physical universe, for the universe relies on the tension of opposites to generate the friction of existence. Think of a violin string. If it is entirely slack, if there is no tension pulling it in opposite directions, it cannot produce sound.
So existence is the music played upon the tension of the duad.
That is a beautiful way to express it. Yet, two, like one, cannot enclose a physical space. It is merely a line.
Right, a line has no volume. It can't hold anything. So two creates the tension, but it doesn't create the arena. I assume this is where three comes in.
Yes, the first true manifestation, the triad. The number three. If one is the spiritual concept of omneity, and two is the line of division and duality, then three is the first geometric figure, the triangle.
Because it encloses space.
It is the first formation that encloses surface area. It is the beginning of all manifestation. This is why the Trinity is held sacred across all genuine mystery schools, from the Christian Father, Son, and Holy Spirit to the Hindu Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva.
It is the absolute foundational geometry of manifested reality.
Okay, I followed the geometric logic. One is the point, two is the line, three is the shape. But how does this abstract geometry apply to the chaos of human life? You mentioned earlier that these numbers have esoteric mechanics.
Yes, how do I use a triangle to understand why my life feels so fragmented?
We apply this through a practice known in the Martinist tradition as Theosophic Reduction. You, listening in the silence, must learn to reduce the overwhelming chaotic complexities of your daily life into their pure spiritual truth.
Reduction, stripping away the excess.
Exactly. This is the operation that reduces any multifaceted manifestation back to its single spiritual digit. Let us take the number 147. 147. To the uninitiated, it is merely a quantity.
But to the mystic,
we reduce it by adding its digits. 1 plus 4 plus 7 equals 12, and then we reduce 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Therefore, the sprawling complexity of 147 is, in its spiritual essence, an expression of the triad.
I want to push back on this just a little. Asterisks are fascinating, but if I'm dealing with a complex situation, say a massive career failure combined with a health crisis, how does adding digits together help me?
You feel it is too abstract.
I do. Are we just playing with numbers to feel a false sense of control over the chaos?
It is not a mathematical trick, you see. It is a diagnostic tool for reality. Theosophic Reduction teaches you a way of seeing. When you are overwhelmed by the 147 of your life, the 100 different emails, the 47 different anxieties, reduction forces you to trace the complexity back to its root cause.
Oh, I understand. It forces you to find the structure underneath the panic.
It asks you, what is the fundamental triad operating here? What is the active force, the passive resistance, and the resulting manifestation? It trains the mind to stop panicking over the countless leaves on the tree and to look directly at the single root.
So it's a method of philosophical distillation, finding the signal in the noise.
Precisely. And within this system lies the profound mystery of 9, the Ennead. In Theosophic Reduction, the number 9 acts as a complete non-entity. It is the symbol of absolute limitation, of a boundary that returns entirely to itself.
Wait, how does a number act as a non-entity?
Take the number 13. 1 plus 3 equals 4. Now add a 9 to it, making it 139. 1 plus 3 plus 9 equals 13, and 1 plus 3 equals 4. The introduction of the 9 altered absolutely nothing of the final spiritual essence.
It's like a cipher, a null value.
Exactly. Any number multiplied by 9 will always reduce back to 9. 9 times 5 is 45. 4 plus 5 is 9. It is the absolute limit of the single digits, the boundary wall of the lower world. It adds nothing to nothing, symbolizing the cyclical, self-consuming nature of pure, unredeemed matter.
So 9 represents the feeling I described earlier, that trap, the factory of noise?
Yes.
The cycle that just keeps looping back on itself without ever evolving.
It is the wheel of the physical world. But just as we reduce complexity to find the spiritual root, we must also understand how forces gather and compound to create form. This is Theosophic Edition.
Theosophic Edition.
The counterpart to reduction.
It is the process of gathering all the forces below a specific manifestation to understand its total occult weight. Take the number 4. To find its Theosophic Edition, we add all numbers leading up to it. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1.
Which equals 10. And 10, when reduced, is 1 plus 0, which brings us back to 1, the monad, unity. Thus, the fourfold material world, when its totality is gathered, ultimately reflects the divine unity of omneity. The many are simply fragments of the one.
Let's ground this triad in something tangible. If 3 is the fundamental number of manifestation, does that mean the physical universe is structured in 3s?
Reality itself is built upon a perfect, interpenetrating triadic structure. This is true for the vastness of the universe, the macrocosm, and equally true for the architecture of man, the microcosm.
Those above, so below.
Always. The esoteric tradition divides being into three worlds. First, the Empyrean world, the highest spiritual realm of pure divine idea. Second, the world of Orbs, the planetary, astrological, and astral realm of forces and formation.
And the third?
Third, the elemental world, the dense physical plane of matter where we currently perceive ourselves to be.
I have to stop you there because my mind immediately stacks those like a layer cake. Heaven on top, the stars in the middle, the earth on the bottom.
A natural but flawed assumption.
But earlier, you said reality is an illusion of space. How do these worlds actually relate to one another?
You must entirely discard the layer cake analogy. They do not sit on top of one another. They exist in the exact same physical space. They interpenetrate one another seamlessly.
Interpenetrate, like
Yeah.
overlapping frequencies.
Consider the air in this very room. Right now, passing through your body, there are long radio waves, medium radio waves, and short microwaves. They are all entirely present, existing simultaneously in the exact same spatial coordinate.
But they don't interfere with each other.
They do not collide, they do not displace one another, they are separated entirely by their frequency of vibration. The Empyrean, the astral, and the elemental worlds interpenetrate your physical form in this exact manner. You are living in all three simultaneously, whether you are conscious of it or not.
So I am breathing the Empyrean right now. It is moving through my cells, but my receiver, my consciousness, is tuned to the elemental frequency.
Exactly. And just as the macrocosm is triadic, so is the microcosm. Man is divided into three distinct parts that perfectly mirror these three worlds.
Let's map those out.
First, there is the the immortal spirit. Its physical correspondence is the head, the seat of higher thought, directly connected to the Empyrean world. Second, there is the plastic envelope, the astral or fluidic body.
The plastic envelope, where does that reside?
Its physical correspondence is the chest and the heart. It is the seat of emotion, the great mediator between the spiritual and the physical, directly connected to the world of orbs. Finally, there is the physical body itself.
The vessel.
Its correspondence is the abdomen, the stomach, the organs of pure biological function. It is the material vessel intimately bound to the elemental world.
Why is the chest the mediator? I mean, I understand the head representing higher thought and the stomach representing digestion and base survival, but what is the esoteric function of the chest?
Think of the mechanics of the chest. It houses the heart and the lungs, the organs of rhythm. Rhythm is the bridge between the eternal stillness of the spirit and the chaotic decay of matter.
Because it oscillates.
Yes. Your breathing, your pulse, these are the oscillating forces of the world of orbs, translating the divine spark from your head into the lifeblood that sustains the abdomen. Emotion itself is a rhythm, an astral current.
This maps perfectly to human behavior. You can almost see which of these three centers a person is operating from at any given moment.
Yes, and these three parts of man govern the three stages of human consciousness, symbolized in the ancient sanctuaries by three altar cloths. The first stage is the instinctive or automatic consciousness.
What cloth represents that?
This is represented by the black cloth. Black is the absorption of light. It signifies spiritual sleep. Those dwelling in this consciousness are governed entirely by their abdomen.
Driven by pure survival.
They are carried mindlessly by the current of biological and societal conditioning. They do not act, they merely react to stimuli, hunger, fear, lust, comfort.
I bristle a little at that description. It sounds dismissive. Are we saying people trapped in survival mode are just spiritually asleep?
I understand why that feels harsh.
Because when you're working 3 jobs to feed your children, you aren't living in your abdomen out of ignorance. You're doing it out of absolute necessity.
It is absolutely not a moral judgment, and it is vital we distinguish that. To call it spiritual sleep is not an insult. It is a tragic diagnosis of the gravity of the elemental world. The physical realm is heavy.
It pulls us down constantly.
It demands immense energy just to maintain biological form. The tragedy is that the system, the factory of noise you described earlier, is designed to artificially keep humanity in a state of manufactured panic, exhausting their vital energy so they have nothing left to ascend to the higher centers.
It's a theft of their spiritual potential.
Yes, a deliberate theft.
So if someone manages to secure enough peace or vital energy to rise above pure survival, what is the next stage?
The second stage is the intermediate or emotional consciousness, symbolized by the red cloth. Red is the color of fire, of desire, of blood, and of struggle. It is the twilight of understanding.
The chest taking over from the abdomen.
The individual is beginning to awaken, governed now by the chest, the heart, and the astral forces. They are fighting on the battlefield of life, seeking to transmute their lower nature, but still caught in the tempest of their own turbulent emotions.
They want the light, but they're still fighting their own shadows.
They want the light, but they are still burning with the heat of their own ego.
Which leads to the third stage.
The Christ consciousness, or perfect consciousness, symbolized by the white cloth. White is the pure light of wisdom, the reflection of all colors harmonize.
The aim, the head.
It is the manifestation of the head, the aim, operating in pure spiritual thought and absolute unity with the Empyrean world.
But the gravity you mentioned, it pulls us down. If man is a threefold being of divine origin with access to this Empyrean consciousness, how did we become so ensnared in this dense, suffering physical existence?
Why is the abdomen winning?
Yes. Why is it so hard to escape the elemental world?
The progression to the numbers 4 and 5 holds the architectural answer. The number 4, the tetrad, is the absolute symbol of permanent foundation in the material realm. It is the three-dimensional cross of matter.
How does 4 create a dimension?
Geometrically, just as 3 points make a flat surface, 4 points create the first three-dimensional volume, the three-sided pyramid. 4 is the volume of the physical world we are trapped in.
The 4 directions, the 4 seasons.
It represents the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. It is the cage of the physical universe.
But the true crisis isn't just the cage itself, is it? It's our relationship to the cage. Which brings us to the pentad. 5.
The pentad is the turning point of human destiny. 5 symbolizes the divine spirit of man crucified upon the four-armed cross of matter. It represents humanity in its exiled, fallen state.
Crucified on the tetrad.
Look at the architecture of your own physical vehicle. 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 appendages extending from the torso. More importantly, you are entirely dominated by your 5 physical senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell.
I have to challenge this. Why are the senses considered a fall? I mean, my senses allow me to hear a symphony, to taste bread, to feel the warmth of the sun. Isn't that beauty?
It is a shadow of beauty.
Why is the pentad viewed with such suspicion in esoteric thought?
Because the senses do not report reality, they report the decay of matter. Your eyes only perceive a microscopic sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. Your ears only hear a tiny bandwidth of acoustic vibration.
So they're blinders, essentially.
Your senses are highly restrictive filters designed solely to keep your biological organism alive in a hostile environment. They are the wardens of your physical prison.
But we trust them implicitly.
When you begin to believe that what your 5 senses report is the totality of existence, you become hypnotized. You surrender your Empyrean birthright for the shadows dancing on the wall. In the esoteric tradition, the pentad in this unredeemed state is often synonymous with the principle of evil, or the abomination of the material illusion.
Evil. That is a heavy, loaded word. If 5 represents the evil of the material world, we have to unpack what that actually means.
We must proceed with absolute clarity here.
Because in my mind, and I think in the minds of most people listening, evil is active, it is malice, it is a dictator invading a country, it is cruelty, it is intentional harm. It feels like a dark force actively warring against the light.
And that belief is the most catastrophic theological error in human history. For millennia, humanity has been tortured by the belief that evil is a rival cosmic power, an entity equal to God, a dark sovereign warring for control of the universe.
Dualism. The idea of 2 equal opposing forces.
Logic and esoteric science completely dismantle this. Evil is not an active, independent power. Evil is entirely relative. It is simply a lesser good.
A lesser good. Calling a tyrant a lesser good feels intellectually offensive. Explain the mechanism behind this, because it sounds like apologizing for cruelty.
I am not apologizing for the profound suffering it causes. I am explaining its mechanical nature. We must use the absolute analogy of the cavern. Imagine you are standing in a subterranean cave entirely devoid of light.
Absolute darkness.
The darkness feels oppressive, heavy, terrifying. It feels like an entity. But does that darkness possess active power? Can darkness aggressively reach out and extinguish a flame?
No. It can only recede.
Darkness is merely the mechanical absence of light. The very microsecond you strike a match and ignite a single candle, the darkness instantly vanishes. It retreats at the exact speed of light.
Because it has no substance.
The darkness could not fight back. It had no substance of its own to wage war against the flame. Evil is exactly the same. Evil is simply a state of untransmuted limitation. It is the mechanical absence of good. When the light of the Empyrean is introduced, evil ceases to exist.
But the tyrant isn't an absence of action. He is actively ordering the harm of others. He is using his will.
He is acting from a state of profound spiritual limitation. Let us expand this to the universal law of polarity. Consider a thermometer.
Okay, a thermometer.
Hot and cold are not two warring elemental gods. They're exactly the same thing. Varying degrees of thermal energy and molecular friction on a single continuous spectrum. Cold is merely the absence of heat.
So the tyrant's malice.
The tyrant's malice is the exact same kinetic energy as love, but vibrating at an agonizingly low, dense frequency. It is the friction of a soul trapped in the abdomen, desperately trying to satisfy a boundless spiritual hunger with the finite domination of physical matter.
It's an attempt to feed a spiritual void with physical control.
So love and hate are on the exact same pole. Good and evil are on the exact same pole.
They are, and this is the profound secret of esoteric transmutation. To defeat the evil within yourself, your cruelty, your addiction, your fear, you do not fight it.
Because fighting it acknowledges it as a reality. Fighting it acknowledges it as a rival power. It gives your vital energy to the shadow. You do not wage war against the cold in a room. You build a fire. You simply raise your vibrational frequency to the hotter end of the spectrum. You slide your consciousness up the thermometer of reality. You introduce the light.
But to introduce that light, to fly it up that scale, I have to stop relying on those 5 physical senses we just talked about.
You must look beyond them.
But if the physical world, the realm of the tetrad and the pentad, is an illusion of lower vibrations, how do I navigate it? I still have to cross the street without getting hit by a car. I can't just close my eyes and pretend the material world isn't there.
No, you cannot. To ignore the physical world while inhabiting a physical body is a fatal error. We must cultivate what the ancients called the near look and the far vision.
The near look and the far vision. Tell me about that.
There is a powerful esoteric anecdote of an Indian guide navigating a treacherous, jagged mountain pass in the dead of night. He navigates flawlessly, surviving the perilous journey. When asked how he accomplished this, he explained, "I have the near look and the far vision."
Meaning he observes both simultaneously.
He said, "With the near look, I see the jagged rocks, the roots, and the immediate precipice directly at my feet. But I guide my ultimate course by the far vision, by fixing my eyes upon the stars."
So the physical eyes are the near look. We use them to pay our bills, to feed ourselves, to avoid the immediate dangers of the elemental world, but we don't let them dictate our destination.
Exactly. Your true direction must be governed entirely by the far vision, your spiritual insight, your connection to the Empyrean stars. If you only have the near look, you will wander in circles in the dark, consumed by anxiety over the rocks at your feet.
You will believe the rocks are the entire universe.
Yes, you will believe the illusion is absolute.
This concept of far vision completely reframes how I understand the miracles of antiquity. We always hear about Jesus healing at the pool of Siloam, restoring sight to the blind, making the crippled walk.
The literal interpretation is that he had magical powers to rearrange physical atoms.
Right, a divine magic trick.
The uninitiated always mistake esoteric technology for magic. Esoteric science reveals the mechanical truth of those events. Jesus did not come into the world to set things right. He came to see things rightly.
See things rightly. What does that mean in terms of mechanics?
When confronted with the physical illusion of a crippled body, he did not look at the disease with his physical eyes. He looked completely past the physical shadow. He utilized absolute far vision.
How does seeing something differently physically knit flesh and bone together explain the causality? Because to the logical mind, observing doesn't equal healing.
He turned his inner vision directly to the Empyrean world, to the Father's perfect divine archetype of that specific human being. In the Empyrean, there is no disease. There is only perfect geometric and energetic wholeness.
The original blueprint.
He held that perfect, luminous archetype in his awareness with such absolute, unwavering intensity that the lower physical shadow was forced, by the universal law of correspondence, to conform to the higher spiritual reality.
Because the higher vibration always dominates the lower.
Always. He saw the truth, and the truth manifested the healing in the physical vessel.
This is where the philosophy meets the absolute friction of human reality. It is profoundly beautiful to speak of the far vision in this sanctuary. But I must ask you on behalf of the person listening right now, when the near look is a doctor handing you a terminal diagnosis.
The ultimate test of the material cross.
When the near look is the sudden death of your child or the suffocating collapse of your entire livelihood. How does a fragile, exhausted human mind resist the terrifying hypnotic pull of physical panic? How do you maintain the far vision when the jagged rocks at your feet are tearing you apart?
That is the crux of the great work. And the answer is not easy. Casual attempts at meditation will fail you entirely in those moments.
They seem meaningless in the face of true trauma.
You cannot simply wish to be enlightened while the storm is tearing your house apart. Absolute, rigorous, unflinching discipline of the mind is the only way to walk the path of return and survive the gravity of the material world. The esoteric tradition demands 3 disciplines of those who seek liberation.
Let's walk through them. Slowly.
The first discipline is right planting.
Right planting. It sounds, well, dangerously close to the modern manifestation culture. The idea that if I just think positive thoughts, $1 million will fall into my lap.
That is a profane, egotistical corruption of a sacred law. Right. Planting is not about wishing for material wealth to satisfy the abdomen. You must understand the mechanics. Your mind is the most potent, creative field of possibilities in the cosmos.
Thought is a force.
Thought is not an ephemeral byproduct of brain chemistry. Thought is an active structural force. It is the positive polarity seeking material expression in the negative polarity of the physical world.
So what we think we build.
Whatever you fix your inner vision upon, you will magnetically draw toward yourself. If you constantly obsess over fear, illness, and poverty, your creative thought will dutifully plant those seeds, and the material world will mechanically grow them into your reality.
So in the face of a crisis.
Right. Planting means aligning your internal structure with the Empyrean archetype. You plant the seed knowing it already contains the fully grown corn. In the face of a terminal diagnosis, you do not hope for an escape from death.
What do you do instead?
You claim the absolute, indestructible wholeness of your your immortal spirit, which cannot be touched by biological decay.
So it is in alignment with eternal truth, not a desperate plea for a temporary physical fix. That requires an immense amount of focus.
Which brings us to the second discipline, single awareness.
I'll admit, right now, just sitting here having this profound conversation, my mind still tries to drift. I think about the temperature of the room. I think about how my words sound. It is incredibly difficult to just be.
Single awareness is the most arduous discipline. It is the ability to feel oneself living, to be entirely present in the moment without the constant chattering interference of intellectual analysis.
The end of the internal monologue.
It is breaking the hypnotic sleep of the instinctive consciousness. Most of humanity is asleep. They are mentally living in the regrets of yesterday or the anxieties of tomorrow.
They are everywhere but here.
Single awareness is the brutal discipline of ceasing to let the mind drift. It is holding your consciousness firmly, absolutely, at the command of your will. It is existing as the pure observer.
And the third discipline?
Quieting the mind. We spoke earlier of the radio waves, the static and noise of the elemental world that constantly bombards your nervous system. You must practice the daily, disciplined withdrawal from this world.
You have to sever the connection to the noise.
You must consciously turn off the external receiver. You must enter the profound inner silence to humbly listen for the still, small voice of God. That voice is not an external deity shouting from the clouds.
It is the outworking of our own imprisoned splendor, the whisper of our own amaro.
Yes. To understand these disciplines, hold on to the analogy of a cinematic projector. Your consciousness is the projector casting a film onto the screen of the physical world.
And the physical world is just the canvas.
When the movie on the screen is blurry, chaotic, and frightening, the profane man rushes to the screen and tries to physically scrub the images away. He attacks the canvas.
Which is madness.
He tries to control other people, amass wealth, or wage war to change the picture. This is the futility of trying to fix the material world with material means.
Because the screen is just a reflection. To fix the blurry image, you don't touch the screen, you turn around and adjust the lens of the projector.
Precisely. Single awareness and quieting the mind are the acts of meticulously cleaning and focusing the lens of your own consciousness. When the lens is clear, the perfect divine idea of the Empyrean projects clearly and beautifully into the physical realm.
If these mechanics are true, if human consciousness literally projects reality, if we have the power of right planting and far vision to transcend physical suffering, why has this been hidden?
It is a dangerous truth.
If this is the cure for the agony of the human condition, why the secret societies? Why the veiled language? It seems almost cruel to hide the map from a humanity that is drowning.
It was not hidden out of cruelty, it was hidden out of absolute necessity. These disciplines, the cultivation of the far vision, the transmutation of the lower desires, the mastery of single awareness, are unimaginably potent.
They are the levers of creation itself.
They are. If the uninitiated masses, the men of the stream, who are still entirely governed by the selfish appetites of their abdomen, were given the explicit keys to mental creation, they would use these laws merely to satisfy their base desires.
They would use the power of the gods with the maturity of infants.
Exactly. They would use them to hoard, to dominate, to destroy. They would cause catastrophic karmic destruction to themselves and the world.
So the truth had to be cloaked.
And so, the ancient priests drew the veil of myth. The eternal architecture of reality was disguised as grand stories of gods and monsters, of heroes and tragedies. The esoteric truth was hidden in plain sight.
The masses worshipped the story, but the initiates read the code.
The profane worshipped the literal stories, completely blind to the fact that they were being taught the mechanical laws of their own spiritual anatomy.
Let's break down one of those myths to see the architecture hiding underneath it. Let's look at the ancient Persian mystery schools and the rites of Mithras.
We must journey into the subterranean caverns of antiquity. In the Mithraic mysteries, the uninitiated public worshipped a myth of a 3,000-year cosmic war between Ormuzd, the god of light and goodness, and Ahriman, the dark spirit of evil.
The ultimate dualistic battle.
The myth dictated that Ahriman invaded the material creation, incarnating into the lower nature of man, initiating a brutal epic of struggle. Mithras, the god of intelligence, stood as the cosmic mediator between these two forces.
And there was a central icon to this, right?
The central bloody icon of this mystery was Mithras slaying the cosmic bull.
On the surface, it sounds like standard ancient theology. Good God, bad God, animal sacrifice to appease the heavens. But if we pierce the veil, Ormuzd isn't a man sitting on a throne in the sky, is he?
No. Ormuzd is the Empyrean world, the pure light of the the head. And Ahriman is not a rival demon with horns. Ahriman is the heavy, dense, instinctual gravity of the elemental world, the lower nature residing in the human abdomen.
And the 3,000-year struggle is the internal psychological war of the men of desire, the agonizing process of trying to transmute our lower nature.
Yes. And the climax of the myth, the cosmic bull.
What does the bull represent?
The bull represents the animalistic, unredeemed biological appetites of the physical body. Its immense strength is the gravity of the physical world. Mithras slaying the bull is not a historical event or a literal sacrifice.
It's an internal requirement.
It is the absolute esoteric necessity of sacrificing your lower animalistic consciousness. You must slay your own lethargy, your own base appetites, so that the divine spark, the blood of the spirit, can be released to fertilize your soul. It is the psychological map of inner alchemy.
We see the exact same architecture hiding in the mist-shrouded oak forests of the ancient Druids.
The midnight ceremonies of the Druids utilized the exact same natural laws. Surrounded by the towering, silent woods, they enacted rituals of life, death, and rebirth.
Using nature as the ultimate symbol.
They mapped the cycles of the sun and the moon not merely for agriculture, but as external mirrors of the internal transmutation of the soul. They understood the continuous cyclical nature of the visible world and the necessity of aligning the inner self with the hidden, eternal forces of the cosmos.
So the Druids in the forests of Britain, the Persian Mithraists in their subterranean caves, the Egyptian priests of ICES, the Greek Pythagoreans, the Martionists, they were not practicing different religions. They were speaking different dialects of the exact same universal language.
They were all guardians of the one light. They all possessed the same blueprint of the Triad, the Tetrad, the Pentad, and the path of return.
And this brings us to what I believe is the greatest tragedy of human history, the profound tragedy of literalism.
The death of esoteric truth.
Yes. For millennia, humanity has slaughtered itself over the literal interpretations of these myths. We built empires on misunderstanding. We worshipped the physical bull. We worshipped the literal oak tree. We worshipped the historical figures and the literal ink on the scrolls, while remaining entirely, tragically blind to the esoteric, psychological transmutations that these symbols demanded we perform within ourselves.
We stared at the finger pointing to the moon and worshipped the finger.
Exactly. We guarded the map with our lives, but we never walked the path.
And so, we return to you. You who have sat in the silence of this contemplation, listening to the echoes of the ancient architecture. You now stand at the threshold.
The blueprint is revealed.
The blueprint of reality is not a historical curiosity. It is the living, breathing geometry of your own existence. The kingdom of God, the Empyrean, the absolute, it is not a geographical location you travel to after the decay of your physical body. It is not waiting for you in the clouds above the earth.
It is a frequency of vibration. And that frequency is interpenetrating your physical form, your very heart and mind, at this exact millisecond.
It is within you.
The prison of the physical world, the relentless cycle of the instinctual life, the heavy cross of the tetrad, these are real, but they are not absolute. You are the projector, you are the lens, you are the Mithras who must slay the bull of your own lethargy.
You hold the mechanism of your own salvation.
You are holding the keys to the circular prison of mortality, and those keys are your own focused will and your own single awareness.
The illusion of the material world is vast, and its gravity is immense. It will constantly try to pull you back into the abdomen, into the sleep of the instinctive consciousness.
The pull of the elemental world never stops.
But the spark of the divine within you, the Ame, is older than the stars and entirely immune to the decay of time. The awakening of the inner vision is a painful opening of an eye that has been sealed shut for lifetimes.
It shatters the comfortable illusion.
The light will burn at first, but once it opens, the shadows of the cave lose their terror. You begin to see the geometry of the light behind the physical forms. The cosmos is speaking to you in the silent language of your own life.
The question is no longer whether you can decipher the blueprint. The question is whether you have the courage to endure the transmutation. Do you have the strength to focus the lens, to step out of the factory of noise and walk the path it reveals?
Listen to the stillness within you. The forces of the Empyrean are waiting for your choice.